Hello everybody, Jay from Pantheon Studios Australia here. Welcome to our next video where we are going to be talking about a buyer's guide for people that are just getting into Tau as a faction. Now, at whatever point you're getting into the hobby, you will have noticed this is not a cheap hobby to get into. Now, while there are plenty of other ways that you can look at collecting an army without having to go down the retail route, I'm not going to focus on that in this video. I'm going to focus on buying things as a brand new product, putting it together yourself, painting it yourself, all the fun hobbying stuff that, you know, once you're done gives you that real feeling of accomplishment and having something that's yours, which is fantastic. Keep an eye out for a future video where I'm going to go through some of the things that I did when I was starting out to collect this hobby on a very, very shoestring budget. But for this one, we are going to go through... now, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but we're going to be using Dice Arcade, which is a place in Sydney. I've had some really good relationships built with some of the guys associated with it, their competitive team, and the guy that runs it and sort of manages all their Facebook community and whatever else. Hey, Dice Arcade, sponsor me. Before I get into the video proper, big thank you to all of my patrons and more about how you can support me at the end of the video. Okay, so let's get into this and let's start looking at, first and foremost, the premise of the video. Now, first thing that I will say, this is not financial advice. This is not me telling you what to buy, but I'm going to lay out with a series of arguments as to why I believe certain units are worthwhile and have value and other ones won't, especially when put into the context of somebody which is starting out for the first time. The second thing that I want to say is that regardless of anything that is said in this video, if you like a unit or you like a model or a series of models, do not let anything I am saying deter you from picking something up that you like. The patron saint of my channel is Riptide, the Stormsurge. And I have him because, well, I love him. I love the model. I love the paint scheme. I got him secondhand and I didn't do it myself. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, cool. Definitely going to get that. So no matter what anybody says, if you like something, prioritize that over anything else. The reason why I'm doing this video is for people that are looking at getting into the competitive scene. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that my entire channel is built around being a sweaty, min-maxy, competitive nerd who is looking at winning tournaments and winning as much as you can in almost any sort of environment you go into. So, with all of that sort of stuff out of the way, let me focus on some of the things that I think are important. And one of the first things I want to talk about, and this is a question I get very, very often, is the combat patrol actually worth it? Let's zoom in a little bit here, shall we? Is the combat patrol worth it? Now, what do you actually get in the combat patrol? You get an Ethereal, you get a Cadre Fireblade, you get a unit of Fire Warriors, a unit of Stealth Suits, and you get a Ghostkeel. In my opinion, no, this is not good value. And the reason is that the Ghostkeel and the Stealth Suits are completely out of the meta. The Stealth Suits have seen play. The Ghostkeel, to my knowledge, has not been in almost a single competitive list since the book came out. They are not in a good place, and the Ghostkeel, while it is a favorite of so many people, it is just not in a place where the data sheet and the rules around it and the rules of the game put it in a position to be a functioning, winning unit within a list. Or even to not be overshadowed by other models that do its job better than it does. The Fire Warriors, great. The Ethereal, there is an argument for it seeing some play. The Cadre Fireblade, there is an argument, though it sees less play overall than the Ethereals in winning lists. So really, you've got a box where you will get moderate value out of some of the units. At best, you're buying it for the Fire Warriors. Honestly, you are buying it for the Fire Warriors. And if that's going to be the case, why not just buy the Fire Warriors in a separate thing? So, Combat Patrol, in my opinion, it is not good value. What is good value, especially in the current meta, are these little fellas. Now, anybody that's been following me for a while knows that these are my MVPs. These are, behind Reptar, the love of my life. Kroot Hounds will for the foreseeable future, have a place in every single list. I run 2 units of them. There are some people that run more, and there are some people that run larger than the minimum for dog squad. I was going to say 4-man, but for hound squad. Now, I don't think, if you're starting out, I don't think going more than 2 squads is strictly necessary, as the 2 squads serve an individual function, but they're not powerful enough to have en masse. Our Kroot Carnivores just got nerfed. It's not a terrible idea to have 1 squad of Kroot Carnivores, especially if you would like to have flexible options. Even though they got nerfed, they are still a troop slot that fills a purpose. They have OBSEC, they have pre-game move. They are, even though they're 70 points, they are cheap as hell. So 1 squad of Kroot Carnivores is not a terrible idea. Commanders, I would look at having a minimum of 2 of these. In the context of Arcs of Omen, where we have, regardless of whether you're Farsight Enclaves or not, where Farsight can have 2 commanders in the same detachment without any penalty, we now also have a stratagem for us to pay 1 CP pre-game and include a commander when we already have one, bypassing the 1 commander per detachment rule for every sept bar Farsight Enclaves. And the commander is our best data sheet, bar none. They are monsters. They just alone are carry platforms. Now, yes, they've only got a certain number of wounds. You don't throw them away willy-nilly. But when they look at something, we have all the tools in relics and warlord traits, hitting on 2s, and all the other accoutrement that you have with 4 weapon systems to really, really put hurt down on somebody. 2 commanders, in my opinion, is one of the first things that people should shoot for. If you're starting out at the 500 point level and you're not going to the 2000 point level, at a minimum get 1 commander. When you're looking at going to 2000 points, get a second one. An Ethereal is something that I would make an argument for. They are a flexible HQ slot. They can carry the Warlord trait, Exemplar of the Cao Yun, and even in certain scenarios, Exemplar of the Mont Ka, though that is not going to get as much value as Crisis Suits were recently nerfed. So Ethereal is a nice to have to round out a competitive collection to be able to flex in things that you need and make some choices depending on the list that you're wanting to run. On this row, these 3 in the current meta are near to mandatory. At least 2 units of Fire Warriors, if not 3. 1 unit of Pathfinders, though you can pick up a second one if you wish. That's probably a little overkill. I'm only running 1 unit of Pathfinders in my personal list, and this was also a list that was shown by Walduck and a number of other people at the Australian Super Major Uprising. The 2 Breacher squads are really, really great. They are a unit which is being plugged into almost every list that I've seen, and this is also mirrored by having 2 Devilfish, well, actually 3, but in the context of our army, you do not take Fire Warriors unless you have a Devilfish. Almost ever. You don't really have strikes. You build them as breaches because breaches are just strictly a better data sheet. For the context of, we don't want these guys as backfield objective holders. If we're going to do that, we're going to spend 24 points and put a unit of Kroot Hounds at the back, or an Ethereal, or have a Riptide or a Hammerhead just sitting on the point because they've got 72 inches of range. You always pair breaches with Devilfish, and they are an amazing combo. If you haven't seen my video on Devilfish, I run through so many of the little tips and tricks and strategies for using Devilfish. I'll leave a card up in the, I believe it's the top right, and go and click that, have a look at it, and that will teach you what you need to know about the Devilfish. Not everything, but as much as I could fit into a video that didn't get ridiculous. Then the Pathfinders, they operate very similarly. They've both got the Fire Warrior tags, so they can do aerospace targeting relays at the end of your turn, as opposed to the start of your next command phase. And you put a unit of Pathfinders in a Devilfish. So 2 of these, 1 of these, and 3 of these is a great starting point. If you know that you might want to use more breaches and you're not too keen on the Pathfinder team, go down the route of 3 of the Fire Warriors, but having that is such a solid backbone for any competitive list at the moment that you really can't go wrong having those. If you're not able to splash on these, or if you're at a 500 point level, 2 of these or 1 of these and a Devilfish is a great way to go. Riptides are one of the heavy support backbones of the current lists. This was even starting to go that way before Arcs of Omen came out and we were at the end of Nephilim, when we had the bombers and everything else. Riptides were still seeing play. They are a versatile data sheet. I've got a video coming out on them very, very soon. but having 2 Riptides, in my opinion, is the sweet spot. You can go for 3 if that's what you're really looking for. I personally am using 2, but it is personal preference as to what you use there, as you just take something else out to put the 3rd Riptide in. So 2 of these are really great. When you're putting them together, if you can magnetize, do it. But otherwise, I'm always looking at the ion accelerator cannon for the main weapon, and I'm looking at the plasma rifles for the 2 other weapon choices that you have over the SMS. But again, if you can magnetize, as is the same with any Tau unit that has options that you plug and play. Like, for example, the breaches, very, very hard to magnetize and not really worth it, as usually you use breaches as breaches, and you'll use strikes as strikes. The pathfinders, I'm trying to plug in as many rail rifles as I can, 3 of them into the list because they're a good little source of output, using all of their drones and all that sort of stuff, but they're not things that you tend to magnetize. The Riptide, if you can, and I've seen some people magnetize very well with them, look up some guides on YouTube or whatever, that will save you a lot of headaches if, say, for example, a heavy burst cannon comes into the meta for whatever reason. You want to swap out those. Or SMS becomes something that we want to take, which for newer people is smart missile systems. We don't tend to take them at the moment because of the nerfs to out of line of sight, but if you want to take off the plasma rifles, being able to just pull a magnet off is amazing. Devilfish I've already spoken about. Stealth suits, if you want to have something which is a versatile plug-in unit because you've got some points left over, they can be good, but they don't get the mandatory tag from me. They are very nice. They can see some play, especially when you are supporting a crisis heavy list. And that's also the other thing, that if at the moment you're very keen on a crisis suit heavy list, even though they copped a 5-point nerf per model, you would go away from the breaches, maybe keep the pathfinders, maybe look at the Riptides as an optional sort of thing, and that would potentially drive up the value of the stealth suits because they have a piece of war gear called a homing beacon, which allows your crisis suits to come down, or at least one unit of them, to come down turn 1, bypassing the rule for it. Now, this is not to be confused with the positional relay that the commanders have. That one interacts with strategic reserve and where you can come on the board, not being able to come in before turn 2. That is actually my first public blunder that I made making a video and had to post a retraction on that. But yeah, so stealth suits can see some play. Commander Farsight, if you're really, really keen on him because he's a fantastic model, I would say hold off on it because we're getting some reveals that apparently there's a new plastic Commander Farsight that's coming off. But if you really love this model, pick it up because you love it. Don't pick it up because you want it competitively. Hammerheads, I have 2 to 3 of these that I plug into a list. 2 is kind of a sweet spot. You can also make one as a normal hammerhead and then make another one with the little guy with binoculars that comes out of the top and just name him Long Strike. You don't need to go down the route of buying the individual, though you can, because it's another blister. They're super hard to find. And honestly, nobody is going to either know the difference or care. Especially if you let the TO know and you say, hey, I couldn't get my hands on a Long Strike. My only hammerhead that has somebody out the top with the binos, that is my Long Strike model. He is clearly, easily identifiable, and there is no difference in the diameter or the footprint of the model itself when they're on the table. No TO is going to have a problem with that. So you can make one as Long Strike, make one as another one, and if you don't call him Long Strike, you've just got one with a dude out the top of it. So that's a way to bypass that a little bit, not spend money that you don't have to. But again, if you're a real completionist, you're a real collector, and you love having that stuff, don't let me turn you off actually buying that Long Strike little blister and getting him in there. Hammerheads are fantastic. The railgun is amazing. Putting the accelerated burst cannons on the underside of them is a great way to go. But again, if you can magnetize or make up multiple of the drones, then being able to swap out for gun drones if you don't want to spend the 10 points is also another great way to go. The Stormsurge, though I love Reptar, it is not in a great place. 400 points is way too expensive. It needs a point cost reduction or we are never going to see play from it. The Piranha, nice to have, but not mandatory. The Vespid, you may get a little bit of play out of as they're very, very fast. They are marine killers when they shoot. They can't benefit from rerolls or anything unless you go Daily Sept. So these ones are if you can find a use for them, Now, when it comes to the dice, just a little quick tip for everybody. If you look up, because I've never been a huge fan of that white viola look, but I love the Tau Ochre sort of look. If you look up the Killteam Tau dice, they are that Tau Ochre look. I'll actually, if I can, take a picture of my dice and I'll overlay it in editing now so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, in the last bit, Ghostkeel do not get, Broadside do not get, and again, I'm saying this, and I know I've already put this caveat down, this is in terms of min-maxing the most competitive stuff that you can. These are not in a good place right now. There is somebody that tried out a 9 Broadside Battlesuit list, but that is a very swingy list in that certain lists it will do very well into, and other things it will just get monstered to the point where it's impossible to win a game. Now, the XV8 Crisis Suits are very, very flexible. They were the backbone of so many of our lists. Even though they're 5 points more expensive, they're not bad. They're just so expensive that it's hard to plug in the things that we need to live. There are lists where you would honestly go up to, 12 to 15 of these suits across 3 units, or using them as bodyguards, because Crisis Suits, you will build the bodyguards out of them. There isn't actually a discernible difference between them. The way that you just identify them is that you have a slightly different color scheme. You have different helmets, or you put rings around the base or something to denote your bodyguard unit. But if you're looking at the Crisis heavy list, then Crisis Suits are obviously the way to go there. Outside that, I don't think there's too much really for me to talk about. The Killteam Pathfinders thing is great if you want to have a little bit of a separate thing, or you are interested in Killteam. Krootox Riders are not in a good place. Kroot Shapers can actually have some play because we can put a relic on them called Advanced EM Scrambler, and you have this tiny little model, which benefits from Lookout Sir, that has a bubble of you cannot deep strike or come in from reserves within 12 of me. It can be really obnoxious, especially into Demons, GSC, drop pods from Marines, Grey Knights, and Thousand Suns that rely on a lot of teleports, that sort of thing. So Kroot Shapers can see a little bit of play, but again, it depends on the sort of list that you're going for. So that's my recommendations. Darkstrider's not in a good place. Commander Shadowsun, she is really good in a crisis-heavy list, but outside of that, isn't as good. And I think I've really spoken about everybody. Piranhas can be a little bit plug and play, but they're just overshadowed at the moment. So yeah, that's my buyer's guide on this. Now, I will be doing another video where I look at all the ways that you can secondhand collect the hobby and save a whole heap of money, but obviously that one, when you buy brand new, you get to put it together yourself, you get to magnetize from the get-go, and you get to do your own color schemes and everything else, and the army is really yours. And it's what I got to do with my Votann when, me and my partner were in a little bit of a better place, and, with the support of different people, friends, and the tournament circuit and everything else. And that was a really great feeling. Even though you're not getting to, you have to look at things that are either magnetized in advance or chop the things off. When you go secondhand, obviously you're having to compromise on the paint scheme, the paint quality, if you know that you're able to do better. You don't get to put it together yourself and do all the poses and everything. So you really are at the mercy of somebody else's creativity. But the upshot of that is that you save a lot of money, you save a lot of time not having to put them together and paint them. But even then, you can look at, going the secondhand route and just buying stuff that's new on sprue or whatever. I tend to only buy, and I'm stepping on the toes of the other video, but I tend to really only look at stuff, even if it's brand new in box, for like 80% of retail. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to have to pay for shipping if I can't drive out and go and pick it up. And I'm not buying from a store that has customer protection policies and everything else. So if they're charging near to retail or not that far away from it, why would I buy from them rather than just going to a store and knowing that I'm supporting an LGS that puts on events and all that other stuff? I'm going to the Dice Arcade GT later in the month, and I'll have a video of that. And I've been at different things. If I can support these guys, or I can support Aussie Wargaming and Irresistible Force, places that actually give us a place to play and everything else, why would I buy secondhand when I can support these guys and really not spend that much more money? Okay, now because I'm a good guy, I have taken it upon myself to draw up a Tau shopping list so that you can visually represent it if you want to come back to the video and just kind of look at this or take a screenshot or whatever else. And I'm going to go through this now. As I say at the top here, all represented as units, e.g. 2x Fire Warriors would mean 2 boxes of 10-man Fire Warrior squads, which can be built as breaches or strikes. And in bold, because I cannot say this enough, always thoroughly research what comes in a box and how many models make up a unit. Me recommending this to you, I will say again, this is not financial advice. This is not telling you what to get. This is me making recommendations for what will put you in a position to have competitive models to build lists around. This is also not telling you what's going to go into a list. This is giving you options. Now, I've got the mandatory and the flex tag. Mandatory just means that this is a very strong unit that can plug into a lot of different lists, and we'll see a lot of different play. The flex tag just means that you won't see it in every list, but there are situations where you will take this, and having it means that your competitive lists that you draw up can be a little bit more flexible and allow you to play different styles. Now, with Arcs of Omen, every list is running 2 commanders. Every single list, whether you're Farsight Enclaves, whether you're Tausep, whether you're Borkan, whether you're Daleth, whether you're whatever, you are running 2 commanders. That is just, as I said, they are the most competitive data sheet that we have. You are leaving money on the table not having these two commandos, and if you're not in Farsight Enclaves, paying the 1 CP for them to have the second one in there. Now, what you build them as can really be your choice. I kind of like having one that's on a flying stem and representing a cold star, because both ways that you build them will have the sort of bigger jets on the back of them. And then I have one which is just walking, so that I can either have it as a cold star, because it doesn't need to be on a flying stem, but I can always have that one represented as an enforcer suit if I want. Because when you're on the table, being able to clearly and easily identify all of your models, and conversely so that your opponent can identify your models, is very, very important, especially at the high end. Ethereal has the flex. There is an argument for him in lists. The Fireblade, I've put that in as a flex, probably a lower priority than the Ethereal or even the Kroot Shaper, though the difference between these two is that the Fireblade can take Exemplar of the Kalyun as a Warlord trait, giving us the pre-game redeploy. A Kroot Shaper outside of Daleth cannot. So a Kroot Shaper can take the Advanced EM Scrambler, the Fireblade can as well, but the Kroot Shaper, in my opinion, is generally just easier to keep protected than the Fireblade is. The Kroot Shaper is faster, it's got a relatively smaller footprint, though it is kind of much to a much in that, but you will likely see more Kroot Shapers than you will Fireblades, but again, this is why they all have the flex tag. Make your own mind up and make your decisions on how you want to build your list with these if you go that route. But you can have a list that's just 2 commanders and then every other slot is filled with other stuff, and that'll still be a competitive list. All of this stuff is not necessary. 2 Fire Warriors, built as breaches. It's got the mandatory tag because this is a style of list that is doing really well. If you're interested in a crisis suit based list, I have also drawn up one of these, so you can skip forward to that. I'll be putting chapters and everything in so you can easily navigate around the video. But 2 squads of Fire Warriors, built as breaches. These, obviously, the units. This is two boxes of them, which make a 10-man squad each. Kroot Carnivores, you can chuck as a flex, because, again, a troop unit with OBSEC, with a pre-game move and all that sort of stuff, it can be okay. We don't see them a ton, but having a unit around gives you a little bit more flexibility to swap in other slots. 2 Kroot Hounds, and I've just realized I didn't do the tags on the rest of these. Let me do those real quick. Alright, so the Kroot Hounds, mandatory. At least 2 units of them. If you would like to run more, you can, but at a minimum, I would say 2 units is the best to shoot for. Unit of Pathfinders, when you're putting them together, make sure you're doing their 3 special drones. And I also personally like having the special weapons, particularly 3 rail rifles if I can get them. Now, I don't know if you can do 3 rail rifles out of a single box. If you can't, don't freak out. There are places, and look for a future video where I'm talking about some of my secondhand buying that I did to be able to get individual models without really having to drop a ton of money or just buy a new box. If you have friends that are interested in certain things, and you can go down that route. If you just want to have 2 units of Pathfinders and make as many of the special weapons as you can, that is also a route that you can go down. In the box, I know that you get a rail rifle and an ion rifle. Most TOs won't care if you're just like, hey, I didn't have enough to get another rail rifle. I've got 2 of these dudes which have special weapons. They stand out from everybody else. They are just like, that is a rail rifle, not an ion rifle. Can I please have a proxy? As long as you speak to them beforehand and get their express approval, then it should be fine. But there are also other routes you can go down to get that sorted. And then 2 Hammerheads. Put the mandatory tag because they are a great unit. They plug into so many different lists, be it Crisis or Fish of Fury. 2 Riptides. Like I said, that is the sweet spot in my opinion. If you want to run 3 Riptides, chuck another Riptide on, maybe drop 1 or 2 of the Hammerheads and look at other things in the list. Make sure you're looking in Battlescribe or the GW app, though I highly recommend Battlescribe over GW. But if you want to throw in the third Riptide, just bear in mind you're taking something else out. So don't feel like you have to buy everything here without planning what needs to come out for the Riptide, the third Riptide to plug in. And then I've got 3 Devilfish to be able to carry your Pathfinders and your Fire Warriors. And this will give you a very competitive 2,000 point list with just what's here. Obviously, you won't include the Ethereal and the Fireblade and the Kroot Shaper and the Kroot Carnivores, but that's not the point of the flex slots. Everything that's got the mandatory tag, when you've got it in your list, will make up 2,000 points with war gear and everything else. Obviously, it will vary depending on what you equip everything with, but that should hit about the mark. With the Riptides, make both of their shielded missile drones, though really I only ever take 1 on one of the Riptides, and even then I don't usually take it on both, and sometimes I will have both Riptides just naked without the drones because I protect them with their Nova reactor to be able to move 2d6 in the charge phase and just abuse line of sight and terrain. But anyway, that is our Fire Warrior Fisher Fury list. Let's go over to the Crisis list. And this one you can see same sort of things, but I've made a couple of differences. Still got 2 commanders. Still got the Ethereal as a flex for non-Farsight Enclaves list, because obviously Farsight Enclaves, you cannot include Ethereals. And I'll say that for the other one. If your Fisher Fury list is Farsight Enclaves, do not include an Ethereal because you're not allowed to do it. In that instance, maybe you want to do a Fireblade, for example, or the Kalyun, or maybe you just have one commander as a super killy Precision of the Hunter commander and you go for something else with the other, and he's a little bit more of a support piece. He'll still shoot fantastically, but he won't put in the same amount of work as the Precision of the Hunter commander will. I've then got Commander Shadowsun, mandatory unless playing Farsight Enclaves. The mandatory tag here is the Commander Shadowsun in a Crisis list. Full Chapter Master rerolls makes a unit of Crisis a freaking monster. I've also put Long Strike, as I said, buy a Hammerhead and make it with a Binoculars dude at the top to save some money. Don't let that stop you going down getting the Long Strike Blister if you want to have the actual model at the top of it. Mandatory and Towsep list with Shadowsun. The reason I say that is that he is great. It's a railgun that hits on 3s and he can give your unit of Crisis count as having a Marker Light when they shoot. So you can go a little bit lighter on Marker Light support, save some points there, and know that, say, like a big 5-man brick with a ton of great shooting is having Long Strike support them. And because they're Towsept, all of their auras are bigger, so you only need to have Long Strike within 9 or 12 inches of that unit in the command phase to give that buff, which is very, very doable. If you're going for Farsight Enclaves, Long Strike and Commander Shadowsun are a no bueno, because Long Strike, I have Long Strike, oh my goodness. Long Strike, they are Towsep locked. Commander Shadowsun, we don't have any of the Supreme Command attachments anymore to put Shadowsun in, so she will conflict with another commander, which means that she is a little bit lower. And actually, now that I say that, Commander Shadowsun, I'm going to put her as flex. Sorry for the whiplash. Flex because she takes the spot of a commander. It can be really good, but previously we were able to have her in a different slot and not have that collide as much. There was an FAQ, I believe, that allows Commander Shadowsun to still go into a Farsight Enclaves list and count as not breaking their stuff. Though I find that if you're going to go Farsight Enclaves, just go the 2 commanders. They're so much better. Her in Towsept is still good. Chapter Master is good, but that's a choice that you're making of having her over one of these guys. Long Strike can't go into Farsight Enclaves. Commander Farsight, flex if you love him and are playing Farsight Enclaves, but I'd still recommend wait for the new model. Unless you just adore the old model and you want to get it before it's out of production, yeah, that's my advice there. Kroot Shaper is a flex for this one because he can carry the advanced EM Scrambler. He plugs into any Sept and he's fine there. 2 Kroot Carnivores flex, but they can be a good troop slot for some leftover 70 or 140 points to give you some obsec, give you some troops, and not be solely relying on the Crisis suits. Then I've got 4 Crisis suit boxes. Now, this goes outside of this, and the reason is that they're 3-man to a box at the moment of recording, and allows you to have 12 suits to run either 2 5-man squads, or 3x3-mans or 4x4-mans. Wait, that's not correct. 3x4-mans, that's what I'm saying. So having 12 suits really just does give you a lot of flexibility. And if you're running 2 5-man Crisis units, you can also have the other 2 as bodyguards and then follow the commanders around, because bodyguard Crisis units come at a minimum in 2. They're not 3 like the crisis suits are. 2 units of Kroot Hounds, mandatory, and I believe I've still got those. I put it here. Wouldn't be a crisis list without the mandatory crisis suits. And Hammerheads are mandatory. Riptides, I would say probably are still mandatory. The reason that I say that is that it allows your crisis suits to go out on the field and be aggressive, and you've got backfield objective holders in the Hammerheads and the Riptides that can still provide fire support anywhere on the board as long as they've got line of sight because of their extreme range. It allows you to play very, very aggressively. And this one, I haven't fully done up the points, but this will be about 2,000 points as well. Just make sure you do your battle scribe and you look at if you need to fill something else in, be it troops, be it... Oh, actually, that's one thing that I want to put in. Okay, I'm adding to the elites list stealth suits because, as I said, the homing beacon, allowing one of these crisis units to come in turn 1 can potentially be just so fantastic for an aggressive play that cripples your opponent immediately. And then, outside that, their forward deployers, if you've got Exemplar of the Kalyun and you're not playing a really fast, turn 1, 2, 3 game, you can redeploy 3 units, so you just pull the stealth suits back if they're at risk of dying or whatever. But you can deploy them in incredibly aggressive ways, and in a meta where there's infiltrators and incursors and all that sort of stuff, you can also have the stealth suits occupy an early deployment place and then go, cool, none of your infiltrators are coming in within range of this. So I've just blocked out a massive area that you would otherwise want to be in. And you can also place them down for blocking pre-game moves. Things like the Votan bikes cannot end their pre-game move within 9 of an enemy model. So you can actually block out enormous sections of the board where the bikes that they put down or whatever else they've already placed on the board. And if they don't have redeploys especially, you go, cool, I am right in front of where you would want to go. You don't get to move past here. Have fun. So yeah, stealth suits, I'll put the flex tag on, but they can also be fantastic. I have actually run these guys a number of times in crisis-heavy lists, and they've done very, very well for me. I'm just going to leave these up over, and I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. I'm going to leave this up for just a moment, and I'm going to have this as its own little special chapter, so you can look at it, reference it, and you can screenshot it if you need to. Now let's swap over from the crisis list to the Fisher Fury list. All right, and that is our stuff. Now, I've given you these tools, but if you're not sure how to put these together and you want to get a list built for yourself, or you want to have a little bit of help knowing how to play each of these lists because you've tried it and you're not really finding much success, I'm running coaching services as part of my Patreon. All my patrons get $5 off any of the coaching services, as many as you want to get throughout a month. So if you're interested in getting a list built for yourself based on the models that you own or getting coaching services, head to the link in the description, head to my Patreon. Not only do you prop up the studio, but you also will get yourself some amazing sessions with somebody who knows this army inside and out. Speaking of my Patreon, so yes, that's the video. On screen now are going to be all of my patrons who make all of these videos possible. All of you guys are incredible. Thank you so much for being with me. If you would like to join them, not just to support the channel, support the studio, but also get things like having your name at every single video, getting access to the Pantheon Studios Discord where you get to pick the brain of all the other people, including myself, about your list, your tournament ideas, the work in progress place where we're sharing each other's painting and modeling and all of that sort of stuff. Not to mention that we've just recently announced that we are going to be designing a D&D module, but 40k and starting with Tau. And we are now streaming the Thursday night D&D group for everybody to watch and uploading it as VODs afterwards. They also get access to behind the scenes stuff from my life, from my tournaments. My chassos get access to my personal tournament lists, as well as getting a free coaching session every single month. And if you're looking for coaching, all of my patrons get a discount off the coaching sessions, essentially making whatever they do to enter the Patreon in the first place. They're getting $5 off every single coaching session, making joining the Patreon free if you know that you want coaching anyway. And if you've watched any of my videos, if you think I'm good during a video, wait until you get a half hour to an hour one-on-one with me. It is night and day how much more effort I can put into you as an individual to help you play better. My chassos, Jacob, Chris, Zach, and Jesse, thank you guys so much. You are absolute ballers. I appreciate all of you guys being here and all of the support that I'm getting from literally everybody. If you enjoyed this video, if it helped you out, as usual, do the internet things, like and comment, and share it to places that you think that this might actually be relevant. You have no idea how much it helps me to get in front of more eyes and in front of more people and try and help out people that are enjoying our faction, because genuinely, I love this faction so much. And if I can help people play a little bit better and by proxy help build my studio and start creating more amazing content, then that for me is just a massive win-win. If you've got any questions, hit it down in the comments section. You'll see on all my videos, I'm incredibly active in my comments. And thank you to everybody for being here, my patrons, my future patrons, even just the lurkers that come and watch every single video. I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.